Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have our monthly subject matter expert and good friend now, Derek Johnson, joining us graciously once again, as he always does, to give us his latest insights and consistencies that we all need for these critical times that we are in. So we're excited to have him. If you are new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and others to gain the knowledge you're being currently afforded. As you know, Derek is a retired Army veteran. He is a country Western music singer songwriter and has successfully completed two books, The Midnight Ride Rise Again, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which we will leave those links summarily as always in the description. He is a subject matter expert on military, laws and orders, and executive orders, as you all know. And so I'm always pleased and honored to welcome the one and only Mr. Derek Johnson to the podcast. Derek, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Enjoying the show.
That's really what it comes down to, right? Ultimately. So, Derek, I really just have a couple of quick questions. Well, basic questions you probably answered 100 times, but we're dealing with a society and a community that everybody's waking up at different intervallic levels, much like what I call mental or physical puberty. Everybody hits at a different point in their life. So I'm talking mostly for the cheap seats in the back or the newcomers that continue to watch the mainstream media or phasing out of the mainstream media and going to channels like this and are hearing different dissenting points of views. What reassurances can you give people from a military and a law and orders perspective? You've always said trust the man, then trust the plan, right? But that deviates for a lot of people because of what I said. So from somebody who's sitting at a higher perch than most, which is one of the many reasons why we trust you when you're here, what assurances can you give people regarding all the issues with the Epstein files going to come out, the arrests, the justice of all the corrupt politicians? People are still not optically seeing it, so they assume that nothing's happening. We know that's far from the truth, but you can give us some good articulation into that. So would you kindly do that, please, good sir?
Well, first and foremost, laws and orders, it sounds like it's such a easy, broken record, cliche, whatever you want to call it, but they're the premise of our foundation. I mean, that's the very thing that set our nation apart from any other nation in the world. Now, other nations have governments and they have what they call laws and orders as well, but ours were unique from the standpoint of a republic, which really hasn't been that in 150 years. You could easily say 150, probably more. But we the people are probably the most diluted, watered down words in our history at this point. Because we the people actually mean we're the government. And every person is supposed to know what I'm supposed to know, like in reality. Um, Executive orders, all these other laws and orders, these are all like they're foundational from our beginning. And then you tie that in with we the people, and then when the people know those basic core functions of government, all right, it doesn't matter what the government, the government will be in our control. So, laws and orders are there. Now, they got diluted even more so, meaning they got hijacked from a group of people, and you could say 150 years because of the organic acts and what they did in the 1870s. But just to home it in a little bit more, look at legendary actor Jimmy Stewart, who played in the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and that was 1939. So here was a brigadier general. A lot of people don't know this, but he was a brigadier general in the military when he got out. And so here's a brigadier general and actor showing everybody in a movie what Washington looked like then. I mean, so it's not new. So it was already hijacked from the standpoint of bureaucrats seeking what mostly money, and they knew the people didn't know what was going on, and they always kept people at bay. And then people also play a role in keeping themselves at bay, meaning right here, and knowing what you're supposed to know. So I really have this little short little timeline that I do with people from 1941 to 2001, because that's where most everybody right now, most everybody, not the 40s necessarily, except for people like my dad, but So if you're 85 or older, you'll probably remember the 40s if there are anybody still living like that, but most people aren't. So 1941, the War Powers Act, and then you had a speech by Roosevelt where it sounds identical to the speech that President Trump gave January the 20th, 2017. He gave it in 1942, where he said, when I get done doing what we're doing, he was like, the power will go back to the people. Well, the people, even at that time period, this was after 39. So the people during that time period weren't knowing what they're supposed to know. But Americans are trusting people, and that's where it can get dangerous, very dangerous, when you get too trustworthy on something you don't know about and you just put your trust into someone without doing the homework. So 41. Then 49, NATO was established. Korea started in 50, Korean War. 51, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves, which is already unconstitutional. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say how many terms a president is to serve. It just says 4 years in a term, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. Then 1961, President Eisenhower, who was a 5-star general, rare 5-star. We don't have many 5 stars in our history, but 5-star general. He gave the military industrial complex speech where he didn't like where the military was going, and he also mentioned medical field because of money. All right. 1963, JFK, January, went around the Treasury. He went around the Federal Reserve straight to the Treasury, took out $4 billion. Guess who didn't like it? The bureaucrats, the deep state. What happened 11 months later? 1968, we left the gold standard. All right. They created the Unified Budget Act. They took Social Security, federal highway funds, all these other, put them together. 1971, the Nixon shock. That's when Congress made the dollar as valuable or as invaluable as they wanted it. Little thing we called inflation. All right. Then you fast forward 91, they changed the budget again. And then you had your world order speech, New World Order speech by George Herbert Walker Bush about the New World Order. All right. 10 years to the day, 9/11. 10 years to the day, September the 11th, 1991, and to the day before, Rumsfeld standing on TV, $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. So, ladies and gentlemen, the laws and orders were hijacked. And I skipped one date on purpose, 1973, because that's when Congress of 73, Congress in that era put limits on the president on what he could do with the military in the War Powers Resolution Act that they call it a resolution, meaning that they amended 1941's Powers Act. They took power out of the president and then they put it more into Congress. Now, the Constitution does say Congress declares the war, but it never says to put limitations on the president either. So that's very important for this, what everybody's seeing right now. President Trump took all their laws and orders, not just him, but the generals in this whole operation, took all their laws and orders, and they're using it against them like a reverse tactic, meaning like a counter psyop, but also a reverse tactic in another, like reverse psychology. You take their language and use it against them. So you got to go back to origins. Origins matter. Who was the president when Epstein took a state charge, which means he took a plea deal? 2008, that was George Bush who was the president. And then Barack Obama came in shortly after. All right, 2010, President Trump called the most, he don't use Russia, he don't use any of the things that happened to him. He said the most scandalous scandal in United States history was Uranium One, which is Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden as vice president. All right. So all these things tie into that. Now, people think, how did Iran tie into Epstein? Well, who was the president during all the Epstein stuff was Bush and then Obama. And then you tie in the law war manual. This is where everybody has to go read. You got to go look at the humanitarian part. It says you can't go 30 and 40 years back and try someone on something that happened 30 and 40 years ago. It has to be relevant. All right. Because if that were the case, anybody could go back and do certain things to people without evidence. And then it would be what? It would be a dictator doing that, not a procedural law and order, rules, things of that nature that are principles, foundations, standards, and things of that nature. So relevancy. Well, President Trump filed a docket case March 19th, 2024, which was 4 months before the quote unquote assassination. In this docket, it mentions the Executive Order 12333, which is the assassination order put into place by President Reagan, all right, which is found in our Special Operations Command Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide as a reference. What are the odds of that? There's not. All right. And so in that docket case, it specifically asks a question: can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder to assassinate a political rival? And it says specifically that multiple combat generals and senior level officials from the executive branch say a resounding no. Well, the last time SEAL Team 6 and a president was involved with anything militarily with a political rival, leader, etc., was Obama and Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was killed May the 2nd, 2011. Well, then 5 months later, another leader was assassinated, Gaddafi. All right, who was the leader of Libya? Gaddafi. Who is tied in with Libya? Hillary Clinton, Benghazi. All right, who was Obama's Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013? Hillary. All right, so all this stuff ties in. And so when people this past week jumped ship with President Trump, you're forgetting the bigger picture. All right. And all the people calling, oh, you're protecting pedophiles. No, it's not. This is the tip of the iceberg. This opens up all of Obama and then Hillary. But then what can happen there? Since the law war manual says you can't go back to X amount of years, but what happens when there's tie-ins like Obama and Hillary, they can tie in to Bush, who Bush can tie into who? Clinton, and then Bill Clinton, and then they can tie into whom? George Bush Sr. So see how all this stuff ties together, right? The swamp ties together. And so that's all you need to know. And let President Trump do his job. You know, this is what he was put there for. He was called to do this. He was asked to do this. All right, and it's a military operation. 45-47 on this ball cap is the visual stamp of the operation. And too many people are trying to separate 45 and 47 as separate presidencies. They're not. It's an operation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Derek, for that. So with all that said, it's sort of a hard question in a sense because you don't have a crystal ball, but I kind of think that we're sort of at the climax point here of everything, financial, geopolitical, what we've been talking about. We're sort of at the tempest or seminal point. So if you agree, what would be your sense of when people will see the arrests and the justice that a lot of people have been widely anticipating? That before the end of the year, fall? What are you thinking?
Well, so what's the justice part? What I've been trying to show people too is keep in mind one thing: justice is an aftermath of criminal activities, right? It's an aftermath. It means it's kind of like a birthday party. The people that get to attend a birthday party, they get to see the finished product of what people plan and put together. And someone had to put the tablecloth and the plates down and all the the party stuff. And so justice is that. What we have to do during this, and this is what we've been doing, military and government. This is what's been going on behind the scenes. It's not only will the justice set up, but justice is your what most people would think as the end road, right? Of or a closing of a chapter, right? Well, you also have to do what during this when you're cleaning out all this stuff, all these operations we've been doing with child trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and all the tunnels and underground warfare. Well, you also have to implement things in place to maintain and sustain your new what republic. Now, we never lost our republic technically, but you got to put in things that go, okay, this festered to this point. We festered, right? It was at the overload. We're at the waterfall where the water is falling, right? That's where everything was with DC and the deep state. It was at all these falls, these waterfalls, the festering point. So in order to not have this constantly, you have to put in things in place going, okay, we're going to have accountability again, responsibility, transparency, honesty, quality assurance, and all these things you hear in business as well for the business minded people. You have all these checkpoints, procedures where we don't ever get to this again. And then you have to have people, manpower who want to do it, first off, passionate about it, second, and also good people. All right. So that's why some of it has been real the last 9 years, finding people who want to do it, but also who don't have this in their mind and or fame and status in their mind. So that naturally you have people along the way who think they're good, and then all of a sudden they may still be good, but they just have the wrong intentions and motives. All right. So you have to do that too. But think about it this way. President Trump, this is why I tell people you got to listen to him. He says, I will be exonerated, not acquitted. And this was not just for Republicans, conservatives either. This is for humanity. So when you hear the word exonerated and you think humanity, well, that means erase the Republicans, conservatives, patriots, because you're supposed to support President Trump by just straight up tradition. All right. So, and not the ones who jump ship, they'll come back around because they'll realize they didn't know they didn't know, and they didn't have to jump ship. But think about the other portion, the ones who hold severed heads up of President Trump, the ones who are calling for his assassination all over social media daily, which I mean, that's a whole other level of evil in my mind, whether they don't know that they don't know. But when you're just calling for an assassination of a man who is the face of this, so think about his age. Now, I don't know every study I've ever looked at, and the most recent, it says the average lifespan of a male is 78 years old. Well, if that's the case, President Trump's a year in bonus round. All right. They're not going to wait till he's 85 or 90 years old to exonerate him. I mean, what will be the point of that? One, no one knows when we're going to live and when we're going to die, except for God. So that would be Russian roulette with exoneration if the good guys of this operation on the command levels say, well, we'll wait to this point. No, when you think about it, outside of what a liberal would say right now, that he plays golf every day, no matter what, no, we don't. All right. But for the ones that think that, think about it this way. For the man to be able to live and play golf all day, every day in his aftermath of presidency, you don't want to wait till he's 85 or 90 years old to exonerate him. All right. The other thing lawfully that shows we're on the plane ride, we're coming down, we're descending to the runway is this. When you have evidence of a continuity of government, then you have evidence of a continuity of government. When you have evidence that the continuity of government was partially revoked, then you have two evidences. You have evidence there was most definitely a continuity of government, all right, full continuity. And now you have partial revocation, which means we're half in continuity government. We're coming down on the runway. We're coming into the landing. All right. So why is Obama resurfacing all of a sudden? All of a sudden, Obama's talking trash about President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Now, he said a few light things to people that thinks he's real, but that's just all social media, right? But he's resurfacing it in a big way. Well, he's a key component. The auto pen is resurfacing. President Trump talked about that yesterday in a press conference, but also it showed quote unquote Biden saying, I made every decision. Well, in a plea deal, this is where people have to really dig into my second book, the special operations part of it, because most of this was special operations, unconventional warfare. But way back here, when they would have detained the key components that they wanted to detain to set this operation up, they'd have made plea deals with them. Well, normally when you see something like that, or you see something like an assassination attempt, that was a plea deal gone wrong, meaning that the plea deal back here, they didn't accept whatever it was. And they said, okay, well, guess what? You can stay quiet as long as you want, but guess what's going to happen on TV? This is going to fall on you. All right. And so the people need to comprehend that a military occupation doesn't mean the war is not real. and the actions are, it means it's a parameter that's been set, meaning we won't let it go past these walls, but we also won't let certain things happen. Now, there's things called retaliations that sometimes you can't calculate, like COVID. Now, President Trump and them knew COVID was going to more than likely happen, and this is going to blow people's minds. But 2018 biodefense strategy, it reads word for word what happened in 2020 in our biodefense strategy. But that didn't mean that we wanted it to happen. It means that we have a safeguard in case these fools retaliate. All right. And they knew that would be a major retaliation tactic is genocide, which they did do. President Trump said way back in 2020, it was one person in China. One. If you go listen to the press conferences, one person did this. Well, that could be the low man on the totem pole. And so many people don't understand special operations, but they need to, for the fact of none of this was his fault, even though they had evidence of, hey, we have safeguards in place if they decide to retaliate. So it was a retaliation part on those people. President Trump drew a line in the sand and said, come across, come across, come across now. It's going to only be worse for you later. So crimes against humanity is what obviously COVID would be. But you can't stop retaliation, because when you take out all these people up here, then it's the same thing you see in the movies. When all their checkpoints are taken out and you got this man down here on the low totem pole, well, these people already told this person what to do just in case they lost communication. And then that person did it. But this person may not be known yet because they may be just a mole or a rat, like a no-name person, right? Someone who's just, lived a life of whatever it could be. Could be a criminal on a low level who just says, I want to be on the high. So many people don't understand that. But President Trump's age has proven that. And then also the Obama resurfacing, quote unquote, Biden saying, well, a plea deal means way back here, right? We're going to go through all this. And then at this point, you're going to turn on me, or here, or here, or here. And so right now you're seeing, quote unquote, Biden accepting everything, which only leads to what? It sets the stage for the real facts for the people who are following the facts. Some people won't ever get on with it because they just don't want to know and either can't know or don't want to know. But that's what everybody's watching right now is setting the stage, because Obama's needed, Biden is needed, and maybe Bush, but Jeb Bush resurfaced. Jeb Bush ain't said anything all this time. And all of a sudden, when President Trump did what? When President Trump took care of Iran, Jeb Bush put out a tweet that it was great how President Trump handled it, which is a complete reversal of any Bush when you know the Bush's history and the real history. So all this stuff's resurfacing and it's coming to a head. Iran was the big key player who had been building these weapons all this time. You had Bush and Clinton, well, Bush Sr., Clinton, and Obama hiding what was going on with Afghanistan and Iraq. There wasn't no weapons of mass destruction. The real weapons were over in Iran. All right. And you have Jimmy Carter's executive order 12170 from 1979 that was continued every 2 years for 37 years. I use 37 because the line was in the sand November the 8th, 2016. And because it's been continued up to this point, I don't count those years because President Trump's taking care of that. So you have evidence of that. And here's your other cherry on top evidence. Syria. I was in the military during Syria. All right. Obama. All right. Obama had us there when we weren't supposed to be there. All right. President Trump hammered him about that. And no one seemed to pay attention to Syria when President Trump was hammering Obama about that on the campaign trail in 2015, 2016. All right. He hammered him about Syria. Russia was in there at the same time. So Obama, executive order, national emergency, Syria. President Trump's the first president to end all these bureaucrat national emergencies with these other nations that they were all for the money for the deep state and the swamp, the bureaucrats. It wasn't for us, the people. So Syria, President Trump just ended that just a couple of weeks ago. He opened up trade and made a trade deal with Syria. Most people, if you knew where Syria was located in regards to Iran and also Israel, you would understand what President Trump has done. And this whole thing was a pre-planned, strategic plan, special operation, strategic operation. All right. and it's not a war with Iran. There
Mhm.
won't be a war either with China and Taiwan. That's going to be a topic
Mhm.
that's going to start
Mhm.
popping up. All
Yep.
right,
Yep.
but it won't be a war. This is all part of the capitulations and the start of 45 and the operations that's taking place. All right, so he will be exonerated. All right, but you got to, in order to, if you're not at peace or comfort, whatever it is out there, it's the government terms are not going to help you. Military is what's going to help you, and whether military is a strong suit for you or not, you're still going to have to study that if you want to really know what's going on, because that's exactly what's going on. President Trump wouldn't have been able to drain the swamp without the military, because the swamp was already the swamp. They used laws and orders against the people, right? They use the very laws and orders that are there, but they use them the wrong way, not as prescribed by the law. All right. And President Trump's doing them as prescribed by the law for the people, you know, but you have to get in the military. So look at his age. It's like I tell people. All right. And look, if you do your math, all right, that's 21 years to 100, right? So you think about the average lifespan, and you think about that, you can't make him live to be 120 years old. Like if there was a way the military said, well, we'll just keep him, we'll just make him look a lot. There's no way you could do that. People wouldn't believe that. So you're looking at an operation that's going to end in the next, year to whenever. I'm not in the command room. I don't know how they're going to lay it out. But I know that everything that are in my books that were actually stemmed from my documents from 2017 to 2021, they're just now playing out right now. And you just have to get in the military mindset of the best you can and apply the laws and orders that are invoked. Don't worry about anything else, and think about it that way. President Trump deserves, even though he's the face, he deserves complete exoneration for what he said yes to. So when you think of it that way, the man deserves to play golf all day, and he deserves to not be looking over his shoulder or anything like that, even though he's got the best protection ever.
Right. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate that. Yeah, and he's doing peace deals in the Middle East, like you're talking about. He's going to squelch all these things, China, Taiwan, because you're right. That is, I think, the next thing up the rear as he does the Middle East. He's ending the banker wars, which is all wars have been banker wars, as you know better than anybody. I also love your analogy about the planes, because I've been saying that to my audience for quite some time, that it's a descending pattern. And to my mind, I think we're kind of at that 75-foot ish touch point. We're about to hit the ground here, to give people sort of a visual matrix of things. So I'm glad you said that. Last question for today,
Won't be
Derek.
any there won't be any crosswinds or anything. Like I told someone the other night, I get on the worst flights ever.
Yeah.
So don't ride with me. Every flight I ever get on is a rough landing. Like crosswinds coming in and everything,
Yeah.
and the pilot's going, oh, and like we're like, all right, just crash us. I'll be fine with crashing. Just get us on the ground. But it won't be like that. It's gonna
No,
be an easy, smooth landing.
100%. 100%. Remind me not to fly with you either on there. We'll
Yeah,
meet up.
don't fly with me.
We'll meet up separately. So last question for today, Derek. So this was one that came from one of our team members, Joe Williams, who's also military as well. So, I had to ask a fellow military brother to engage with you on a like-minded mindset. So when President Trump recently raised a big American flag at the White House lawn, that was officially carried out, was that in fact victory over the British and the Vatican territory? In other words, was that the reestablishment of the constitutional republic?
Well, yeah, you could look at it that way because I mean he's completely taken over that whole region. The same thing whenever the POW flags started flying under the American flag, that told you right then that we've got the monarchy of a prisoner of war. Basically, it was all optics. Now that's that's where people outside of military are really going to have to get into militarily of terms and optics, what we call optics, which have an underlying meaning somewhere else with military, kind of like a wrinkle flag. A wrinkle flag means that you're a traitor, right? Because again, when you think of a flag at a death, that is the final chapter of that person. And if that person was someone that you honored or cherished, or they were uh, they're to be dignified, then you want a flag that's crisp and also ironed. And that's what the military does. So yeah, our flag has a lot of significance with everything, which is why I show people on January the 20th when the National Guard don't salute the flag. I mean, every military personnel, that's why they tell you keep your head on a swivel in the military. And I'm sure he'll remember these days, but I'll tell a quick funny story for the people who are not military where they'll tie it in better about that flag and that day. So I'm on Fort Sill, and my buddy and I were walking to the PX or somewhere, and we had our head on the swivel. We saw a little van coming, and the colonels, ladies and gentlemen, colonels and generals are right around a little van on base, and they have a plate that they'll put their rank in. It's removable on the front, and then they'll put the little flags up on the front of the van, just like you see with the president. And you better keep your head on the swivel. And they mean this. So he and I were walking, and we stop. You stop and you just salute. Now the key is if he makes eye contact with you, he may be engaged in conversation in the van already, and he may or may not salute. But if you're standing there like at an angle and it comes by like this, as long as they're out of your peripheral, it's already an automatic known that okay, if he didn't see you, then you can just go render your salute, go about your business because he'll also know. That's how key these officers are when they go by. They know they're past you. You can't see them. So you can only salute what you can make eye contact with. Well, these other privates, I guess they were private. We don't know. We think they were. You could just kind of look at soldiers and tell what rank they are by how old they are. So there's two walking on the other side of the sidewalk. They didn't stop to salute this one van. And you talking about a screeching halt. That joker locked the brakes on that van, the guy driving. All right. Locked the brakes, screeched it to a halt. The back door opens, not the front door, the back door, and it was a sergeant major. And he jumps out and gets in the face. And you can only imagine what he was saying. It would sound like a Morse code. It was like beep, 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 so like but basically, because weren't paying attention, they were supposed to stop, salute like we did, render your salute. And then if he did or didn't, doesn't matter once they go by. So little things like that. The average person to think that's the most crazy. Well, but that's why military is so keen on pay attention to detail, pay attention to the detail, pay attention to detail. And it's all day, every day. It's all day, every day. So the flag is a very big significance. And President Trump putting those two on it's both sides, actually, if you look at it. So it's like it's yeah, to me, that would signify which he already had conquered DC. But still, that would be your absolute, as we know, the Marine Corps, Iwo Jima, the famous. Every time a flag has been put up, kind of like that, that would be a chill bump of the battle. The battle's over. It's been conquered. And so everybody needs to rest assured with that. That's why I tell people all the time: listen to veterans who know our laws and orders, who know what's going on. Not that we're better than anybody. We're not better than anybody, but a military operation does require military personnel to go, well, that's what that is, and that's what that is. And there's things that have been along the way in this that only military would have known. That helps you go, this is it's all an operation, strategic, special. Um, and there are always bumps, as our veteran brother know. There's always going to be bumps and hiccups, but that's life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for confirming that because that's sort of what we suspected. I was glad to hear you put sort of your rubber stamp on it. I think that should hopefully engender some confirmation and peace and clarity and trust for the respective audiences to kind of know as a compass of the direction that we are in and where we're headed, to your point. So Derek, as we conclude the podcast, as we always do, last thoughts that you have for the audience and where can people find your work?
Well, trust President Trump. The only way you can trust him though is to trust the plan, and the only way to trust the plan is to read the plan, and it's most definitely a blueprint there, and it's just all laws and orders, and there's a few nuggets there, all along the way that just absolutely show you, And so, you got to go read and study those. And I provide all those little intricate, off the wall nuggets that absolutely prove it's an operation. So, you can find me on my link tree. That's probably the best one is linktr period EE / 1776 nation. Because there's a lot of fake accounts out there still trying to contact people, and I'll respond to you, but I don't contact you. So it's little hairline differences there, but I do respond to followers as much as possible. But so that's the best place to find it. And then like DerrickJohnsonCountry.com is where you find my music and my books and merchandise, or rattletrap1776.com. Those are all on the link tree, but those are more specific.
Great. We will, as always, customarily leave those links in said description so that people can find you in those different portals. Derrick Johnson, we appreciate it as always, brother. Thank you. Attention, and your service, both past, present, and future, as we talked about earlier. And hopefully this will give people some good comfort points or comfort food for the soul where we're headed. So we appreciate it. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again down the road.
Sounds good. Good to be here.
You too. Thanks, Derrick.